our next part, we're looking at some do's and don'ts with regards to missions or your short-term mission team. So these are just some do's and don'ts that I've come across that I've found helpful for preparing short-term mission teams that I've been a part of, and also for just preparing for whenever it is my wife and myself going. Later on, we'll give you the opportunity as well to jot down some do's and don'ts that you can come up with too. So first off is do your preparation. Don't leave it to the last minute. Every time when we have prepared teams well, we go with a lot of confidence. We go with a lot of, yes, we are ready. And then when we've left things to the last minute, a lot of times we go very, very stretched and very, very, oh, why didn't we think of that earlier? And then we have to go back to the resolving conflict session because we didn't do our preparation earlier. So a lot of things just comes down to preparing and ensuring that you have the right information, that you have things sorted as best you can from this end, so that things will go easier once you get to the next end. Next is, do go as a learner. Don't assume. A lot of times we have a picture of how things should be when we get on the mission field, and when we're unsure of stuff, we come up with our own answer. And, oh, they do that because it must be because of this. Oh, the reason why this thing happens over there is because, it's because I think that it's because of this. But if you're unsure of stuff in your preparation or while you're actually there on the mission field, there's actually people you can ask. There's people you can learn from. You can learn from your mission coordinator. You can learn through the people that you're going through. Oh, why is it done that way? Asking in humility as a learner, someone who wants to understand and be a blessing. It is also great to learn about the culture. Learn about how their culture is different from yours and how you can adapt, because you're going into their environment. So it's not for them to adapt to us, but us to go in and adapt to them and fit into their culture as best we can. And I find that language is such a great thing to be able to break a lot of cultural boundaries or cultural walls that may be there. You see people's hearts open up a lot. So if you can just learn a few phrases like, hi, my name is, how are you, God bless, good to meet you, things like that. If you could just learn a few phrases, that will go a long, long way to breaking the ice and for them to open up and listen to the gospel. Next one is, do be uncomfortable. Don't stay comfortable. You've already gone all the way into a different environment. You've paid the airfares. Now, once you get there, don't just look for things to be comfortable for you. Allow yourself to be stretched. Allow yourself to experience as much as possible and as much as you're allowed to, experience how the local people live, how things are done there, and not just simply looking for, oh, where's the closest McDonald's, or can we just stay in the room where it's nice and it's got aircon? But be willing to be stretched, be willing to be uncomfortable, and you'll find that not only will you open up a lot of doors and opportunities, but you in return will be blessed and you'll grow so much more. Another thing is, do be flexible. We in the West, we come from very time-sensitive cultures, but a lot of times we'll go into mission fields where time is not so important, that it's more about relationships. So when you go to an event that was meant to start at 4 and you're still sitting there 2 hours later waiting for things to go ahead and no one else is stressing out, then just be flexible, relax, everything will be okay. As we go into their culture, we must understand that things may move at a different pace. Things may be done differently. So don't judge, but learn to be a learner and learn to flow with the culture of the people so that you can speak into the culture, so that you can be accepted by people and therefore they'll accept the message of Christ. And one of the biggest do's that we have been saying throughout this time is do pray. I don't think I can stress that enough, but be a team that prays. Be a person that prays. When in doubt, pray. There are so many times that I can think of where I had been lost, where I had been out of my depth. And I know that at those times, I had not known the answer, but God knew. I didn't know the way to move forward, but God knew. So prayer is so important, and continue to pray, not only yourself, but your team together. Some other don'ts to be mindful of is, don't make promises you may later regret. You know, when you go, especially when it's your first time on the mission field, you can just feel the excitement, and also you can go and you can see the need, and then you just start making promises. Oh, I'm going to be back next year, or oh, I'm going to support you and everything's going to go well, and I'm going to make sure that all these things are taken care of. Yet once you come back to New Zealand, or once you come back to America or Australia or wherever you may be originally from, you start to realize, things, I can't actually live up to those promises. I can't actually action them right now. We want to be mindful that when we go, we are going normally through an organization or some mission director, that we have to be mindful that we're not making promises that ends up putting pressure on them, because we're only there for 2-3 weeks, and when we leave, if we've made promises, they may be the ones that have to bear the brunt of people being upset. Oh, but they promised that they would do this. They promised that they'd do that. So please, I know we can get excited, but let's not make promises that we're not entirely sure that we can follow through with. Another don't is don't gossip. Not to gossip within a team. We know that gossip within a church is a huge sin, and for us to bring that within a team is a big no-no, because that will cause a lot of strife, a lot of division, a lot of conflict. So please, not to bring that within your team. Another don't is don't criticize your host culture. Remember, if you are unsure of things, to ask questions. You're going there as a learner. So don't go, oh, well, back home, this is how we would do it. I don't know why they do it like this. That's totally wrong. And that would be a wrong attitude for us to have. Instead of criticizing, choose to learn. Choose to understand why they do things. And that it's not so much wrong, but it can simply be different. Another one to be mindful of is don't flaunt your wealth. One of the mission fields that we are currently in, the pay for one of our friends, her whole year's pay is about the same amount that we would get in 1 week back in our country. So if she worked every single day of the year, it would amount to 1 week's pay back home in New Zealand. So sometimes we don't really truly understand the big difference in what they have, the big difference in what we have. And sometimes when we spend, we think, oh, this is really cheap. And we're thinking of back home in New Zealand, whereas the people that you're ministering to, they're like, wow, this person just spent 4 months of my pay, just like that. And that can sometimes build up a lot of resentment, or it can be like, oh, these are people that I'll just get to know because of money, which is another thing that we don't want to do. So when you go, please be mindful how you spend your money. You may think that you're only spending a little bit with all of the things that you have, that you want to do a lot of shopping and things like that. Please be mindful that for local people you're going to, it's like, wow, they're just spending all this money on all these different things. And then you can build up a lot of unnecessary resentment. So when you go into these environments, be careful how you spend and to not indulge while you're on the mission field. You're there as a missionary, not as someone who's just worried about getting good deals while you're away in a different environment. So don't flaunt your wealth. And our final one is, don't complain, but keep a positive attitude. You will experience a lot of different things and a lot of room, and there's a lot of room for you to complain. There's a lot of opportunity for that. But for you not to be a person who just simply complains throughout the whole trip, but choose to keep a positive attitude. There may be a lot of things that may upset you and a lot of things that can irritate you, but choose to have a positive attitude, because when we have a positive attitude, that can go right throughout the team and be a blessing, and then it will go right to the people that you are going there to minister to. The same is true when we complain. It can start from you and go right throughout your team and then spread to the people that you're meant to minister to. So let's choose to have a positive attitude when we go out on the mission field. Some questions for us to think of. What are some additional do's and don'ts that you and your team can come up with to add to what we've discussed today? And just take your time and go through everyone and think of different things that you would have to be mindful of that you should do, and different things that you shouldn't do while you're out on the mission field.